Street, and a very warm welcome to episode 2 of Metaverse What Matters. It's a chat show filmed here in the Metaverse and published all over YouTube so that everybody can access it. And I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by Dr. Catriona Wallace. She's the founder of the Responsible Metaverse Alliance, a social enterprise and an international movement committed to ensuring and supporting the development of the metaverse and the virtual worlds. This is all about ensuring that they're handled responsibly, that they are all secure in terms of design, development, operations, safety, culture, inclusion, and indeed their function. So, Catriona, how are you? It's great to see you.
I'm so well, thanks, Jules. It's great to be here again with you in the metaverse.
It's great, isn't it? And I have to say, the feedback to these episodes have been phenomenal. Just very quickly, if I may, just to explain who on earth I am. So I'm a founder and CEO of a business development, marketing, communications consultancy, working in the weird and wonderful worlds of financial services and technology. But I'm also a professional speaker and a host. So I travel both the virtual and the real worlds, interviewing senior leaders like Catriona Wallace, all about what really matters right now, today, and also what will matter tomorrow. So, Catriona, I wonder if we could just go back, because in the last episode, and viewers, of course, you can find that on YouTube. I wonder if we can just go back, because we had some phenomenal interaction with the audience. And one question was thinking about the governance and the use of AI, and particularly thinking about the metaverse and everything that holds. But could we just take one step back for the benefit of the audience and just give us a primer, if you will? What is the metaverse? And then we can take the discussion from there.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. And to be fair, there's no one established definition of the metaverse. So I'll go with what we use at the Responsible Metaverse Alliance. So that is that the metaverse is a concept or a construct that refers to the existence of immersive or virtual worlds where people come to make social connections. So let's unpack that itself. So the word metaverse, the term was actually coined originally by Neil Stephenson, who wrote a book called Snow Crash back in the 1990s. And he used and described a concept of the metaverse, which is pretty close to what it is today, to be honest. But the metaverse is made up of virtual worlds. So there isn't just one metaverse. And these virtual worlds use immersive technologies such as virtual reality, extended or mixed reality, or sometimes augmented reality, all of which are slightly different. So that's the best way to think about the metaverse. And we know there's at least 160 different virtual worlds in this construct of the metaverse currently.
Now, I know one of the things that you're thinking about a lot with the Responsible Metaverse Alliance is anchoring your work around the potential harms that could be created. And I was really fascinated because when we talked last time, you referred to the concept of identity in the virtual, digital, and the physical worlds, and focusing on really protecting that and keeping people safe. And you were talking about how you're working with many different government bodies and safety commissioners and also creators. Tell us, how is that going? How is that work developing?
Yeah, that work is going extremely well. And where it has, since we last spoke, Jules, where that has evolved to now, is some very, very good work we're doing with various police commissions. And so moving from identity as kind of the core challenge that the metaverse faces, about how can you identify in the virtual world compared to the digital and the physical world, we've now extended that further in the work we're doing to working with assistant police commissioners down here in Australia for the Australian Federal Police, looking at what are the potential crimes that could be committed in the metaverse, and then what would an international policing movement for the metaverse look like. So what is, I just think, extraordinary is that we have the most important work being done and thinking being done by policing, cyber security agencies. We know there is Crime Stoppers and those organisations that are looking at how could crime be organised in the metaverse, or how could terrorism be organised in the metaverse, right, that extreme end, which are the conversations I've been having recently, right through to the other end, which is more commercial application. And our chief scientist, Dr. Lewis Rosenberg, is big on this. How do we regulate AI-driven manipulation of participants in the metaverse around, say, product use and product placement? So everywhere from a simple commercial application right through to organised terrorism, it's all up for discussion now.
And I think what's fascinating is we get into this discussion, we're going to be thinking about it from creators and product creators and platform creators' point of view, as well as from the governance and also the political point of view. Now, we've had some amazing engagement, actually, and thank you to everybody who's been posting on social media and with your questions. So I've actually created a little segment to the show. I hope you don't mind. I'm calling it Ask Cat, where basically you can ask us anything in these shows and we'll unpick that for sure. And Kat, I have one really early important question, which is around this concept of pace. At what stage are we going to be completely immersed in this world and how we live, work, and play as well? And a lot of people think about this in the concept of play, but this is, huge adoption in the world of education, in the world of science, and the world of financial services, and more as well. One question we had was, when we think about, and the last episode you talked about sort of 5 to 10 years from when it will be the dominant way in which we live, work, and play. One question that came in, and again, thank you for that, was why so long? Given the accelerating pace of technology and innovation in general, does 5 to 10 years seem like a long time? And also, another one I'm going to bring in is this response to, we had Second Life. Did it really take hold? So what are your thoughts about whether this will take off and how long that will take?
Well, let's put it in context. When we think of artificial intelligence or AI now, we know AI, particularly with the emergence of ChatGPT and the other generative AI-based chatbots. We know that's going very quickly now. But AI was actually coined in the 1950s by some computer scientists at Dartmouth University who recognized that software could replicate human intelligence. So that's been 70 years coming. Virtual reality really had, one of its peak points in the 1990s. Virtual reality is really just landing now. So compared to that length of time, which is often 50 years for a technology to become really mature, us looking at the metaverse being mature in 10 years is actually a very fast amount of time. And if we say it's completely mainstream by 10 years, we pull it back to it is one of the main channels we interact in within the next 3 to 5 years, then that is extremely fast. It might not appear that way to some people, but it actually is in technology terms. And now that we've seen the emergence of a sort of a resurgence of AI with the announcements around the generative AI and the chatbots, now let's plug those chatbots into the metaverse and see how that speeds things up as well, which is exactly what is happening. So I think it is already a rapid pace.
It'll be fascinating to see, as you say, to what extent that accelerates. But can you put some numbers around it? Because we had a couple of people going, well, I wonder how many people are using it. We'd love to get some data around usage.
Yeah, absolutely. So we estimate that there is about 470 million users of the metaverse now, so users of virtual worlds, which is almost 500 million people, which is quite a lot. When we look at some of the early stage metaverses like Roblox, so Roblox is a desktop-oriented, avatar-led children's metaverse. There are 50 million children under 16 years of age who use Roblox. And then if we step into another virtual world, which is Fortnite, so Fortnite, most people know because their children will be using it for gaming. It was a gaming company. It is now a metaverse company. There are 350 million users of Fortnite alone. So when we start to think about the scale and how quickly the adoption is coming, well, those are already significant numbers. And in my public speaking talks, I always start with showing this, really rocking a metaverse concert of Travis Scott. And we can leave judgment of Travis Scott aside just for now. It's just actually a really good visual. he had 12.5 million people attend his metaverse concert because it was in the metaverse
Right.
and
Yeah.
not in a stadium somewhere. So that is epic numbers. And so I think there is absolutely good reason for all brands and all companies to be taking this very seriously. It's a real world.
And I think that really kind of brings to mind kind of the numbers of people who are participating now, the potential for reach and scope. And for me, I'm always kind of like follow the money. And I saw something from JP Morgan saying that they'd invested 120 million, if I've got that number correct, into investments in 2022 alone, which is significant. And I think we're just going to continue to see the growth of investment there as well. In fact, I feel I may have even got that wrong. I might have underestimated that 120 billion is what I should have said actually in that number. But let's think about expectations for the future. What do you think the market size will be in, say, 2029, for example, by the turn of the decade?
Yeah, so PwC has probably done the best estimates that I'm aware of in looking at a future projection of the value of the metaverse. They're estimating it'll be valued at $1.3 trillion by the end of this decade, which is actually not that far away, 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years away. Significant value there, which will be reflecting all of the investment that's going in by some of the investment companies that you mentioned. JP Morgan quotes that $120 billion. We know that the individual corporations are in the metaverse. So Meta itself had a $10 billion investment into building their metaverse, Horizon World. So there is a significant investment and significant growth. Again, Jules, it's just important that the audience know this is a real world and it is serious and it is full of opportunities, full of risk.
Well, and thank you to the audience for those questions. Do please keep posting on social media because we would love to. A great place to do that is on LinkedIn, or indeed to do that on YouTube itself, because we're going to be putting those questions to Catriona Wallace on every episode as well. One of the things that I really struck me from our conversations and also from our research is how you've tackled such a big question about the focus of your work around 4 key pillars. And I'd love in this episode to just delve into one of those particularly. Before we do, would you mind just walking us through those 4 key pillars of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Responsible Metaverse Alliance, as you mentioned in your introduction, is a social enterprise and an international movement across 4 key pillars. One is working with the builders or creators of the metaverse. So we see that those suppliers, so the NFT makers, the graphic designers, the games makers, all of those often smaller companies or individuals who are providing services to the big metaverse platforms. We see them as a very important cohort to support, and so that they know how to build in a responsible and ethical way. The second pillar is around policymakers, and this is actually our number one focus at the moment. And we've learned through the just over 6 months we've been around that there's huge interest from policymakers. So this is international level politicians, government officials, regulators, commissioners, policymakers, bringing them together to start to share their thoughts on how to create a responsible metaverse. Because, of course, we have the jurisdiction challenge where there is no borders, there's no states, there's no countries, there's no national borders. There's not even an international, nothing's international really either in the metaverse because it's another level altogether. So everything we do has to be at this macro level, and the policymakers, so we've already run a policy think tank, a builders think tank, and coming up we will be doing a policing in the metaverse think tank, and then we'll be doing an educator think tank. So we've been inundated by school principals, interestingly enough, hundreds and hundreds of school principals interested in how do they work this technology into schooling. Then the third pillar is all around diversity and inclusion. So we're still seeing big challenges around human rights in the design of these technologies, human rights within the metaverse, exclusion, lack of diversity still playing out in the metaverse. So that's something that we're very dedicated towards. And then the fourth pillar is this concept of interoperability. Now, in the metaverse world, when you hear people talk about interoperability, from the technology players, it's all about how do all the virtual worlds operate together. But from our perspective, it's if we think about how many worlds we live in now, there's the physical world, which is when we're face-to-face with people. There's the digital world when we're on our phones or on our desktops. And now there is the virtual world, which we're sitting in now. And then if you're like me and you're into the psychedelic renaissance, then you know, of course, there's many other worlds, but we won't go right there now, Jules. We'll just stay with these three worlds. So the virtual world, we need to have interoperability between the virtual world, the digital world, and the physical world. And that's a huge challenge at the moment. So we're dedicated to working with organisations to help connect all these worlds up.
And I just want to pick up on the psychedelics point of view, because I know that's something you're very focused on as well. We won't be getting into the context of this conversation, but I feel that should be an entirely separate conversation, because that's one of the driving trends for sure, that I think actually that intersection between technology and psychedelics in and of itself is a phenomenal discussion to have.
On that.
But I wonder, thank you for laying out the...
So today I subscribe to TRIP, which is TRIPP, which is a metaverse application, a meditation application, but it's actually as if you're in a full psychedelic trip. Absolutely stunningly beautiful.
There we go. Well, that's an example of how that technology and those worlds have come together. Thank you for laying out those four pillars, because we do want to get into those. In fact, the next episode, which is going to be timed around International Women's Day, we're going to be talking about the diversity and inclusion point of view. But I wonder now if we could just focus our discussion today on content, because we also had some questions in from the audience about what this means for content makers as well. So I guess from your point of view, what I'm thinking here, designers, artists, creators, suppliers, what, in your opinion, must they focus on? And then we'll get into what we believe they are focused on.
Yes. So if we think about this new world, this virtual world that we're in here now, a lot of it is about art and creativity. So at the moment, we appear almost cartoon-like avatars. Over time, as the technology improves, that will be more realistic, and we'll be able to present as more realistic, probably more human-like avatars. Alternatively, completely non-human-like avatars. I know in Oculus, my avatar is a little green sort of lady elf, which I quite like to be. So it's not necessarily that we replicate humans, but there's a lot of work for the graphic designers, the user experience, user interface designers for creating the art that goes into the metaverse. Then we have the whole NFT, or non-fungible tokens. And again, non-fungible, fungible means replaceable. A non-fungible token is a non-replaceable token, so a unique digital asset. There are many NFTs that are used in the metaverse. So for example, we have the Responsible Metaverse Alliance has an NFT of an office for our business that we have had made for us. And so there are whole organizations, and one I know is called estates.io, who build NFT homes for the metaverse. So there is also a lot of the games, because there's a lot of gaming done in the metaverse, so creating all the elements of games. We're also seeing a lot of the brands like Gucci, Prada, Nike, Zara, and a number of, I think it's Ralph Lauren is also in there, creating their products to be used in the metaverse, and then partnering up with different metaverse worlds to sell those products. We do know that the highest grossing cosmetic company in the world is not actually Chanel or L'Oreal, is actually Fortnite, in selling virtual cosmetics to all of their gamers. So there are these amazing opportunities now for all of the creatives to come in and be providing these services to the virtual worlds and to the metaverse platform providers.
And I think that's one of the things that's really blowing people's minds when they begin to realize the potential for the industry, the potential for brands and partners to come in. But I wonder, kind of, so this is sort of been a wonderful way to look at the potential, if you like, and thinking about what creators should be focused on in many ways. What do you think they are focused on? Do you think there's a gap? Are you concerned that they're not focused in the right ways right now?
One of the things we are concerned about, and this is from our research in the field, is that the creators may not have awareness around the whole concept of ethical technology and ethical design and ethical creation, which sits as one of the components of a responsible technology strategy. And these, Jules, there are 7 or 8 core principles that should be included in the design of any product or service that's made for the metaverse. And our experience is that compared to previous technology movements, actually those people involved in as creators and builders in the metaverse have a much greater social orientation than previous generations of technology, yet they do not have knowledge about the technical nature of building ethical technology within a responsible strategy. And that's the bit I'm concerned about.
And what do you think that will galvanize them to really focus in that area? Because if they're being taught from people who haven't thought about that in the past, it's really important that they do focus. What will galvanize that change?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, it's often when there's been a real problem or someone has been hurt or very poorly affected or discriminated against, and it becomes viral, and then people pay attention to that. So unfortunately, that tends to be the way it goes because, and I've spent the last 10 years writing books and talking on ethical technology, and unfortunately, ethics, for most humans, isn't their guiding star of what they're building the technology for. Sometimes the carrot doesn't really work. It's much more that they've seen something go wrong and they don't want that to happen to them, so they start to look at what the ethical components are. Either way, it doesn't worry me. As long as they start to learn about how to build ethical technology and ethical products for the metaverse, I'd be happy.
And do you think there will be an increasing demand from the users to ensure that they are thinking about it? I'm just wondering what the risks and potential commercial rewards of paying attention to it right now might be, rather than ghost event, as you were saying, could be the reality.
Yeah, well, one of the things we know is that if something does go wrong from a poorly designed technology or something that discriminates or hasn't been done ethically, the nature of the metaverse and all of the communication channels that sit around it. So most of the Web3 and metaverse community sit in Twitter and in Discord, which is the other platform, social media platform that they use. Things go viral very quickly. And once your reputation is burnt by you having created a product that perhaps was not ethical or discriminated or had caused harm, once you're burnt, you're almost completely done because of the nature of the speed of communications and your brand reputation. So one of the things is that the community almost moderate themselves to a degree, because the challenge still is, Jules, that there is no law or rules or governance of any of this. So there isn't a regulating body that says, Julia, if you're building a certain NFT or you're building a product for the metaverse, then it has to be done in this way that's ethical and doesn't discriminate. There's nobody that does it. No actual body or party that does that. And
it's interesting, it would be fascinating to watch how the community itself, community of users, will essentially, as you say, sort of self-regulate as well. So what are you most optimistic about when you think about content creation, when you think about the imagination that can come to play in this new world and its fast growing adoption? What are you most optimistic about?
I'm so excited, and even though I know I'm like, it's got to be ethical, it's got to be responsible and lots of risk, I am the biggest fan of the metaverse. And I did a talk to 700 school students and teachers and parents the other night, and I showed a video of the new world of education in the metaverse, where students could put on headsets and go back into ancient Rome or ancient Greece, or climb a pyramid, or go down to Australia and walk through the outback without leaving their desks at school. And the kids' eyes were so wide, the parents' eyes were so wide, in just awe and wonder at the level of education. This immersive education is extremely exciting. And if we look at the top 3 use cases really for the metaverse now, number 1 is still entertainment. So it is still gaming and, going to museums and having virtual tours and things. That's super cool. So that's the first one, is entertainment. The second is education. And so there are now whole schools that are set up in the metaverse. So you don't go to a physical school or a digital school. Your whole schooling is done in the metaverse. And then the third use case is around virtual health. So training doctors using virtual bodies so that they don't have to operate on cadavers or real bodies, that they operate on virtual bodies, is amazing. The use of augmented reality in doctors conducting medical procedures when the senior doctor is in another country. This will be revolutionary in healthcare.
Yeah, and I was so delighted when we first put out the first episode that we had particularly some educators engaging with us on social media, saying, I'm going to show these episodes to my class. It's been phenomenal to get your insights in terms of the creation, but also the imagination and its potential. It's incredibly exciting. We're going to be getting into many other areas of discussion as we go through of your strategy, which is a wonderful framework which to begin to think about the future of the metaverse, thinking about what your comments, your questions, your remarks, your engagement. They're incredibly welcome, and I'll be to Dr. Catriona Wallace in our next episode as well. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Catriona, it's always a joy to see you. So you're in Sydney at the moment. I'm currently in Europe. I'm actually in Portugal right now. I'm usually based in London, if not on an aeroplane. So it's wonderful that we can record these episodes. Thank you for being with us. And yeah, take care. Speak to you soon. And by the way, actually, before we do go, what would you like the audience to do that will be useful for you?
Yeah, absolutely keen to know what's top of mind for them, because we have to get as many people educated as possible, that you know what the metaverse is, you know how it operates, you know what the benefits are, you know what the risks are. So just keep their questions coming. I think that is excellent, and we'll do our best to answer them. That would be perfect. Keen for people to follow both you and myself on LinkedIn. I'm at Catriona Wallace is the best place for me, or on Twitter at Catriona Wallace. Catriona, of course, spelt the Gaelic way with the strange spelling. Because there I'm posting lots and lots of things about the metaverse and also AI every day. So a good place to learn.
Wonderful. Dr. Catriona Wallace. Thank you for watching Metaverse What Matters. Thank you for engaging. Do subscribe, share, and of course, we'll make sure you are updated with future notifications of other episodes. Thank you for watching Metaverse What Matters. I've been Julia Streets. Until next time, goodbye.